Hey guys, my name is Emma and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the mid-year book freakout / check-in tag. And the reason why I say / check-in is because what I've actually done today is I've smashed two tags together. So there is the mid-year book freakout tag that is very popular and lots of people do. But there are a few questions on it that I don't really have a good answer for. Not how I interact with books particularly. And Harriet Rosie has the mid-year book check-in tag. So what I've done is I've kind of smashed the two together and amalgamated them to create just a list of questions that I personally want to answer about my reading for the first half of the year. I've put all the questions down below listed, including ones that I didn't answer for both the particular tags and the original ones. So if you do want to do either of these as a full video, you can. And if you want to do the weird smash up that I'm doing, obviously you're welcome to do that as well. I'm not going to state as I go through which one comes from which tag in particular. I'm just going to answer them. So the first question I'm going to answer is how many books have I read this year? And as of this moment in time, I've read 69 books, which means I'm well on my way to hitting my 100 books target. My average pages though, and like my number of pages read, is significantly lower than last year because a lot of the books I've been reading have been much shorter. So I think I was looking on Goodreads and my average length book is on like 270 pages right now, whereas last year by the end of the year it was at 340. So it's just an interesting observation that whilst like the volume of my reading is in terms of like actual books finished is technically higher than it was this time last year, I think the quantity of pages read and the amount of like content consumed is probably about the same. It's just I'm reading shorter stuff at the moment. What is the best book of the year so far? And for me, I'm going to break this down into fiction and non-fiction because there was no way I could possibly pick just one. So my non-fiction top hit is definitely Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brusatte. I absolutely love this book. It is fantastic. As the name suggests, it is a comprehensive look at the whole evolutionary lifespan of the dinosaurs and their time on Earth, and it's also laced through with some really interesting biographical and autobiographical information about Steve and the other archaeologists who have found these various things and kind of the cultural impact of paleontology in today's society and kind of historically as well. Really cool, really interesting, a lovely blend of science and kind of memoir, and also not too sciencey, so I don't think you need much background information to be able to read this. My fiction book that I think is my top one for this year is The Book of M by Peng Shepherd. I read this at the beginning of May and it absolutely blew me away. It is fantastic as far as books go. It's kind of a weird dystopian fiction / magical realism book where in society people start to lose their shadows, and once they do they start to lose their memories. But more importantly, when they start to lose their memories, the way that they remember the world becomes reality rather than reality staying like it. So for example, if I forgot what colour t-shirt my partner was wearing this morning and I thought that it was red rather than blue, it would suddenly become red actually in the real world. It's just an amazing story, such cool concepts, done really well, so many twists, so many amazing characters, just like was not expecting that to be such a good read. Another question is favourite sequel, and actually this year I've been starting a lot of new series but not really continuing on many of them, so I only really have like one book that would technically fulfil this criteria. Luckily I really loved it, and that is book 2 of the Lady Trent series. This is The Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan. The Lady Trent series is basically, I always describe it as David Attenborough meets dragons meets Victorian lady. It's wonderful. It's like a weird nature writing but with dragons. It's a memoir, as the name suggests, or like a fictional memoir. I really love her as a character, and I thought in this book we got to see her really grow and become kind of a respected scientist in her own right, because in the first book she was very much under the shadow of her husband the whole time and it was kind of her first jaunt out, whereas we see her really mature into kind of a legitimate scientist in her own right in this book, and I loved it. Can't wait to continue with the series. What genre have I read the most this year? I was trying to work this out actually, and I really don't know. I have quite a nice even spread of genres, to be honest. Percentage wise, I know that classics and non-fiction are both sitting relatively high at like 15-ish% each. I don't really know if there's a stronger breakdown in the rest of them. I know I read a lot of magical realism stuff, so that potentially is slightly higher, but then there was a huge amount of historical fiction at the beginning of the year. Basically what I'm saying is I read such a weird variety of books that I don't think I have one particular genre that has kind of dominated my reading. What new releases are there that I want to read this year? And to be honest, I really don't pay attention to what is or isn't a new release on my shelves. I've definitely started reading more new releases since being in the booktube community, just because I'm more aware of them, but I honestly have no idea what is or isn't a new release. I had to look this up on my Goodreads, but technically The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil is a new release. This is going to be the buddy read pick for me and Amy in a couple of months time when it comes out in America. I saw this available, it's like a signed first edition from a fantastic bookstore called Toppy & Co. So I couldn't resist picking it up last time I was there. It is a historical fiction set in Victorian London, and it's to do with the pre-Raphaelites and painting. I don't know a crazy amount more than that, but I love the art world. I really enjoy historical fiction, and it just looks like it's going to be really good fun. Anticipated releases for the second half of the year. This year I do actually have a few anticipated releases, which is completely insane because normally I don't. Normally I have no idea what's going on in the book world. But the wonderful author of The Night Circus, Erin Morgenstern, I think is her name, is coming out with The Starless Sea or The Starless Sky. It's a hotly anticipated next book from her, not related to The Night Circus in any way, but it is the second book that she's ever written. I know BookTube is going to go absolutely cray when this one comes out because we all love The Night Circus, and for good reason. It is a wonderful book, so I'm very excited about that. Mildly concerned that it won't ever live up to the hype that it has already got around it, but you never know. Book 2 of the new trilogy from Philip Pullman is coming out. I can't remember what it's going to be called, but basically it is, he's revisiting his world of his Dark Materials. I read book 1, which is The Belle Sauvage, the Book of Dust. There are so many subtitles to this series, I don't actually know what is what. I read that Christmas last year, like not last year, the year before, so I'm looking forward to jumping back in the world. I've not been hugely impressed with his revisiting, but he could still win me over, we never know. And then the hugely anticipated follow-up to The Handmaid's Tale is coming out at the end of this year. It's called The Testaments, by Margaret Atwood, of course, the powerhouse of fiction that she is, and again, really keen to jump into that one. I might even reread The Handmaid's Tale before that comes out, because it's been a little while since I read it. But yeah, so I have these on pre-order. I literally never pre-order books, and I decided on a bit of a whim to pre-order them the other day because it was like a bit of a bundle deal that Amazon was doing, and yeah, I'm excited. Like, I have books ready to come when they get released. I bet they sit on my shelves for like years now that I've pre-ordered them. Biggest disappointment. Ooh. Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know, everyone raves about this bad boy, but for me it fell completely flat. I did not enjoy this book at all. I gave it, I think, a 2-star, and honestly that was just because the audiobook was so well done. I think had I been reading this in physical form, I probably would have DNF'd it. It would have got 1 star. I was not impressed. I hated so many of the characters. I felt that Taylor Jenkins Reid did not go as far as she could have done for so many of the things, and it just felt really pointless to me. I have a whole separate video ranting about this and about why I love The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and why I felt so betrayed by this book in particular. So betrayed is such a dramatic way of phrasing it. Let down by this book in particular. I'll link that down below if you are interested, but this one just didn't resonate for me. Biggest surprise of my reads this year, and that one is Kurt Angle's It's True, It's True. This is an autobiography by Kurt Angle, as the name suggests. He is a wrestling superstar both in the amateur wrestling world and the pro wrestling world. He has won a gold medal in the Olympics and is has been a firm fixture in the kind of WWE world. This was just such a surprise. The reason why I read this book in the first place was because Andy gave it to me as part of our we swapped TBRs for a month thing. I was so not psyched. You can see my face in the video when this book comes out. I'm like, right. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I stayed up till 2 AM to try and finish it. It was just fantastic. Just such an interesting story, really well written, really thoughtful and interesting, and opened up a world that I knew absolutely nothing about. Ridiculously amazing, totally not expected. Favourite new to you author is going to have to be Kate Atkinson. I've read 2 Kate Atkinsons this year. I've read Life After Life and Transcription, and I adored both of them. I rarely ever feel comfortable asserting that an author is a favourite author, because what I often find is if I've only read one book from that author, I'm not going to claim that they are a favourite, but I'm going to claim that the book is a favourite. And what I often find is when I then go back and read more books from that particular author, I'm nowhere near as impressed, and I seem to have like one big hitch from each author and then be completely not bothered by the rest of their catalogue. This is not the case with Kate Atkinson. I absolutely adored both books, and I'm definitely going to go and try and read more of her. She just has such a wonderful writing style and such a strong command of different kinds of subgenres. Like, we've got historical fiction and then this kind of weird playing around with timelines kind of idea. I think that she has just a very high level of technique and mastery, which I really appreciated. The most beautiful books on my bookshelves, and for these I'm just going to do an entire series, and that is the Penguin English Library paperbacks. You know, I mentioned them last year. I've been collecting more and more of them. I just think that they are beautiful. Like, there's such a classic, pun not intended, simple way of presenting books, and I love the way that they like are distinct and unique and kind of capture something about the book, but then are also clearly like part of the whole series kind of idea. And I've definitely noticed that, like, so I made a conscious effort this year to be reading more classics, and one thing that I really just think is helping with that is the fact that I want these on my shelves. Like, I want to own them, but I also don't want to own books that I haven't read. So because of that, I'm definitely reading more of them than I would do otherwise, if that makes sense. And there's just something about putting a book in like a really pretty cover that makes it more accessible. Like, it shouldn't do, that's really stupid, but if you put it in one of the really bland, boring classics covers that you often see out there on the market, like, just my interest levels turn off immediately. Whereas these look cool, like, they're so pretty, and I'm finding that it's a really interesting way of being exposed to new classics that I hadn't necessarily thought I'd want to read before. Because when I'm scanning like the classic section of Waterstones or whatever, looking for another one of these that I'm thinking like could be really cool to add to my shelves, I'm spotting like weird patterns that I'm not familiar with, and then I'm grabbing the book and like reading the blurb and going like, oh cool, that'd be really interesting. It was how I ended up reading The Beetle by Richard Marsh, which, don't worry, I'm going to talk about it loads in my June wrap up. I loved that book. That is one of the unsung heroes of the classics world. More people need to read that. It's amazing, and I never would have picked it up if it weren't for these covers. Bookish highlight of the year would actually have to be linking kind of to that same question. It's basically just the number of classics I have been reading and my conscious decision to read more of them, and I've really been enjoying that as a process. There are just so many fantastic stories out there that like I would immediately shy away from because I associate them with like school and having to analyze the book and like study it, and you know, considering them quite dry and difficult to read. And actually there are some, they're classics for a reason. Like, there's so many really wonderful stories out there, and my goal was to try and hit 20 classics by the end of the year. I've read 9 so far. I'm on my 10th at the moment, and I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. So yeah, I think that has been a big bookish highlight, and I'm really pleased that I made that conscious decision to kind of push through the bit at the beginning where it is kind of difficult to get into the wording necessarily of classics, and try and like push past that to get to the bit where I can really enjoy them, because they are fantastic. And then the final question is books that I really want to read by the end of the year. I kind of fairly arbitrarily picked a bunch of things off my shelves because, to be honest, I don't have anything crazy in particular. I'm going to do a separate video where I kind of do like a goals check-in type thing, and part of that is going to look back on some of the videos I made at the beginning of the year, talking about like new authors I wanted to read, classics I definitely wanted to get to, things like that, and just see how I'm doing. But I'm such a mood reader that like as soon as I put something down as an intention when it comes to my reading, being like, oh, I'm definitely going to get to that this month, it's kind of a surefire way of making sure that I don't, because I just like to read whatever takes my fancy at that point. So I've kind of pulled a few off that are appealing right now, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to, but you never know. One for definite is I'm going to be finishing off the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm really psyched by this. I've already started The Return of the King on audiobook like yesterday. Loving it. Again, a massive surprise. Was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I am. So going to prioritise that. I did state that I wanted to read War and Peace at the beginning of the year, and I think I might have to let that one go. But that's okay, because I wasn't expecting to get through quite as much of Lord of the Rings, and I think if you just like add all the books together, it's kind of like reading War and Peace, right? It's not. I'm just making excuses. I'd quite like to get to A Gathering of Shadows. It's the second book in the London series by V. Schwab. I'm probably going to save it now for like an October-y kind of time. I've been trying to read The Grace of Kings for literally like a year now. I just need to get around to reading it. For God's sake, read this. I picked up the Versions of Us recently, and I'm kind of psyched by it. It's giving me like a proper sliding doors kind of vibe, and I'm kind of in the mood for that sort of cutesy rom-com-y kind of thing, but also with like a bit of a weird twist. I've got a whole bunch of like golden age of crime, classic crime fiction on my shelves. Two, just an example, is the Arthur Conan Doyle, obviously Sherlock Holmes series, and then Dorothy Sayers' Lord Peter Wimsey mystery series. I've got some Agatha Christie, I've got a few other things which I can't remember off the top of my head, and I really do want to get around to reading a bunch of them. Oh, Raymond Chandler, people like that. So I'm saving them for a thriller-a-thon at the moment, but that's probably going to happen. I'm definitely going to read The Winter of the Witch. I'm definitely going to read this. I'm thinking about saving it for October. I read The Girl in the Tower for Spookathon last year, and I think if I can make this one fit, I'll also read it in Spookathon again, and that'd be really cool. Last year I went away for Spookathon, which was awesome, whereas we're not doing that this year, I don't think. So yeah, I'm not too sure. But yeah, so those are kind of a few that I really want to get to. I guess technically, like, I started rereading the Animorphs series. It's going to be in my wrap up. It's been a whole thing. This month has been weird. Yeah, the Animorphs series from when I was a kid, the Kay Appleton, or Applegate, or whatever her name is, series, and I've really been enjoying it. I'm like 7 deep, there's 54 in the series, and I might just like make a commitment to try and smash all of them. I think I'm just gonna like keep reading them, so they weren't necessarily ones that like I was determined to get to, but I'm pretty sure, just predicting my reading behaviour, that I'm gonna end up reading a bunch of that series. So that's the thing. So yeah, so that's pretty much it from me. This was the mid-year book freakout / check-in tag. Curated by yours truly, cherry picking questions that I actually wanted to answer. It's been a really good reading year. It's been a weird reading year in a lot of ways, but it's been a really good reading year, and I'm coming up to my booktube anniversary at the beginning of August, so that's really exciting as well. So yeah, so generally everything is pretty darn good. Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye guys.